The prosthetic is a device that has been replacing limbs for over 3,000 years. The earliest use of a prosthetic was found in 2000 in Cairo, Egypt, in a mummified body dated between 1100 and 600 BC, where a noblewoman had a toe made from wood and leather to treat what may have been diabetes. It is said that prosthetics were used to hide deformities and re-establish the function of the lost limb. At this point, you're probably wondering, how did they amputate lost limbs before having modern surgery tools, anesthetics, or hospitals? In ancient Greece and Rome, to stop the bleeding of a lost limb, surgeons tied off blood vessels, also known as ligation. Another way to treat bleeding was cauterizing the blood vessels, meaning that the skin of the wound was burned off with heated materials such as oils and irons. Then the skin would be closed around the lost limb. Anesthesia wasn't developed until the 1840s, so imagine how painful that would have been. You may have heard stories of pirates and their adventures at sea. You may remember how they dressed with eye patches, hooks for hands, and wooden peg legs. Did you know that the hooks and peg legs were used as prosthetics? Since pirates didn't have many materials on their ships and suffered wounds and injuries in ship battles, pirates had wood and metal aboard their ships to create their prosthetics. Prosthetics have been used throughout history to replace limbs that have been lost from disease or wounds from battle, to restore the function of the lost limb artificially. In today's society, those who live with prosthetics are seen as heroes, as they can live a normal life despite missing a limb or many limbs. Some of these heroes include Terry Fox, who sought to run across Canada with a prosthetic leg for cancer research. Physics are a key factor in the functioning of prosthetic limbs. Walking with a prosthetic leg can present stability and coordination challenges. Therefore, forces acting upon the leg need to be taken into account. These four main forces are the force of gravity, which is applied downward from the body by the earth. The normal force is applied upward against the foot by the ground. The applied force is the force you apply backwards against the ground. And in turn, the ground applies a force of friction forwards against you. How does it work? The motion of prosthetic limbs is similar to that of springs. While the body moves forward, causing kinetic energy, which is the energy of a moving object, it also moves up and down, creating changes in its gravitational potential energy, which is the energy stored in an object due to its distance above the surface of the earth. For every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. Sound familiar? That's because the motion of walking with prosthetics work in accordance with Newton's third law of motion. In this case, when walking, the applied force from the prosthetic onto the ground and the force of normal back up from the ground are equal and opposite. There are many different types of prosthetic limbs that are designed with different goals in mind. A cosmetic prosthetic limb is an artificial limb with the purpose of looking lifelike. Rather than being a controllable limb, this limb is ultimately for appearance. New technology has allowed for these limbs to look so real that they are undistinguishable from actual body parts. There are other prosthetics that are created solely for usability and function. One common controllable prosthetic is the split hook that replaces hands. The hook can be opened or closed to grip objects and perform various other tasks. There are also limbs that can be controlled by another working part of the body. Cables attached to the healthy body part can be moved in certain ways to control the prosthetic. The most advanced prosthetic limbs can be controlled by the electrical impulses in the body. To understand how this works, it is important to understand some aspects of neurobiology and the nervous system. Receptors are part of the nervous system that detect changes in the environment and then initiate an electrical nervous impulse. Now, it is important to understand how the electrical signals work. A neuron is essentially a nerve cell. The dendrites collect incoming signals, then the axon of the cell carries an ongoing signal. The method in which the signal is carried down is electric because it involves the flipping of charges on the axon. The neuron is polarized, which means it is negatively charged on the inside and positive on the outside. This is because there is a lot more sodium on the outside than inside. When the neuron receives a signal, sodium channels open and sodium rushes into the cell, which dramatically raises the charge inside and it becomes positive. This is called an action potential, and it moves down the neurons to adjacent neurons. These impulses are carried by neurons to the central nervous system, which consists of the brain and spinal cord. Then the impulse is carried to effectors, which are the muscles or glands that carry out a response. Targeted muscle reinnervation is the newest, most cutting-edge technology used to control prosthetics. In the procedure for TMR, the surgeon attaches the nerves at the end of an amputated limb to another healthy muscle in the body, most likely the pectoral muscles. In an amputated limb, the nerves sent by the brain will reach a dead end. By reassigning these nerves to another healthy muscle, a person can move their prosthetics by simply thinking about it. When a person wants to move their prosthetic, electric impulses will cause the pectoral muscles to contract. Electrodes will sense this electrical activity, and the impulses can be used to control the robotic limb. Technological advances nowadays have provided us with mini computer phones and cool new fast cars. In a society where technology is taking over, people often forget that the most remarkable thing about these innovations is that they allow us to live our life more conveniently and gives people the ability to do things that make life worthwhile.